Hey, O's fans, the Birds will be home Friday night. Finally, the long road trip is over. And after the sweep of the White Sox, they'll take a 6-6 record into Oriole Park at Camden Yards. The O's breaking out new City Connect uniforms on Friday night. That should be fun. It should be an exciting weekend in downtown Baltimore. And we look forward to that. And glad you joined us tonight. It's Steve Melewski, Tim Barbalace, and Brad Brach for another edition of Birdland Territory here as part of the Foul Territory Network. A lot of topics really interesting, I think we're going to get to tonight, to including the bullpen, how they're doing so far. We're going to check in on Gunnar Henderson's start and what might be in the offing for him this season. We'll talk a little bit about ABS challenges, which suddenly are not going as well in Birdland. We'll check in on that and some other things too. But guys, let's start with the bullpen. This was considered a question mark on opening day. And so far, the Oriole bullpen is actually outperforming the rotation in the stats. The bullpen is fifth in the American League, 3.66 ERA, fifth in opponent average, 2.08, and fifth in K per nine, 10.8. They're showing some stuff. They're showing some gas. And they're, even with guys going to the IL, several of them. Let's start with you, Brad. They seem to be overperforming expectations to this point.
Yeah, I think guys are, slowly starting to find their roles here, and they're finding good spots to put them in these games. You got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff when you put these guys in spots that they want them to succeed in, and that goes a long way. So I think guys are just slowly finding their way here, and they're doing really well. They're throwing strikes, they're striking guys out, and they're keeping the lead. Or when they're down in games, they're keeping them close to allow them to come back and get some more runs and tie the game up. So they're doing a great job so far. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out from here. They have some guys without a ton of experience, so they're off to a great start. That's all you can ask for. And then just kind of hope that they can continue it for the 6-month season.
That's the biggest thing, Brad. The question marks surrounding this bullpen were in large part because there's so much inexperience here, where last trade deadline, no position group got altered more than the Orioles bullpen. They traded away everybody, and it was the land of opportunity. And you saw some of these guys like a Wolfram, like a Rico Garcia, get some extended run last summer. And this year, you're trying to find these guys that can emerge. And so far, Rico Garcia absolutely fits that bill. He's got 6 scoreless appearances. He recorded his first MLB save yesterday. And Anthony Nunez, I know we touched on it yesterday, guys, but the fact that Craig Albarnez had the confidence in him to put him back in a high leverage situation after Saturday not going his way, he came through in a big, big way. And Rico Garcia, he's in the top percentile in the league in terms of ground ball rate, and he's Mr. Bases loaded, guys. Opponents are 1 for 15 against Garcia with bases full in his career.
He is quite a story. Went to Hawaii Pacific University. This is his 7th team. He's not a spring chicken anymore. He pitched in the WBC for Puerto Rico. And one thing that jumped out at me about the game yesterday, guys, is Oriole pitchers had very little swing and miss. You go look at the StatCast stats, whiff percentage. Even Bradish, who usually has some whiff stuff, he didn't have it yesterday. Other guys who pitched were not getting a lot of swing and miss. In comes Garcia. He gets 5 whiffs in 7 swings. That's a tremendous percentage. 3 for 3 off the changeup. And Brad, is the stuff that good? Does the league not know him yet? Or maybe this guy is coming into his own in front of our eyes here?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit of combination of all of it. The league is they're trying to figure him out, and I'm sure teams will have more of an idea of what he's trying to do out there. But his stuff is good. It plays really well. Like I said, yeah, we kind of talked about yesterday, lefty changeups into lefties is a really dangerous pitch, but he went back in there time and time again, and it's obviously a strength of his, and it's not something you see very often. So he's got a lot of confidence in what he throws, and you can tell by the way the season has started that he's going after guys. I know yesterday wasn't the best example of that, but he wants to go after these guys, get ahead in counts, and then go to that changeup and get swinging this stuff, which he obviously has. And you're talking about Nunez. To me, the interesting part with him is that he did not have to start the year on this roster. He has options, so they could have sent him to the minor league. So they obviously see him playing a big role in this bullpen. And to me, it shows, like we said, bringing him back out in that same spot there in the 8th inning yesterday, that just goes to show where they think that he could land somewhere in this bullpen rotation.
And Nunez is another crazy story, Brad, and the fact that he was acquired in the Cedric Mullins trade. This was a 2-way player. he hadn't thrown a pitch in the majors until he made this roster, and the Orioles, they gave him an opportunity, and he's certainly making the most of it, because the first couple appearances we saw him in, there were more low leverage situations, but the stuff plays. The stuff is electric that Nunez has.
Yeah, he's got a power four-seamer and a sinker. You don't see that too often from relievers, and to have both those pitches is huge. His story is got to be one of the more unbelievable ones in baseball. Getting drafted as a position player, going back to college, then getting drafted as a pitcher, and now he's made his way to Baltimore, and he seems to be one of these big arms that you hope emerges, and he can be out there in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning anytime they want him out there now.
And I think another development for this bullpen, Steve, is Tyler Wells, where his first couple of outings, it didn't go his way, but now he's had a couple of scoreless. I'm super high on Tyler Wells, and we've seen him in a multitude of roles since making his Orioles debut. Heck, he was a closer in 2021, Steve. Then he was a starter, had the lowest whip in the first half of the 2023 season, but he's been at his best in the bullpen, and I think that he can be a weapon out of the pen.
You know what I loved about sorry, Steve, what I was just going to say,
good point. And Tyler isn't even really locked in yet, but go ahead, Brad. You were
no, I was going to just to that point, like he's coming off injury also, and they had him out there in the 8th inning on opening day. And I love that they brought him back and just kind of use him in multiple inning outings in the 6th, 7th inning, kind of get his feet back under him here so that they know he's going to play a big role in this bullpen as the season goes along. And he's done a great job bridging it to the guys in the back. And I thought that was a really smart move to kind of get him out there in a little bit lower leverage situation, because it's tough going from, spring training, you're not sure if you're going to start, if you're going to relieve. He's kind of done everything. Finally found out he was going to be in the bullpen. You go out there opening day, you're setting up the closer, and didn't have his best outing that day, but they kind of, took it a step back, got him in some lower leverage innings, and now you can see he's starting to roll again. His fastball, is going to play up, and he's throwing 92, 93 from what I've seen. It's going to be higher later on in the season once he gets going. So that's a really good sign that he's getting the bad contact with that pitch up in the zone at 92, 93 right now. Got to figure he's going to be somewhere 94, 96 once he really gets going during the season.
So it's a bullpen showing potential right now, O's fans, and we're going to see how that plays out. The names are not what you would predict it a week ago. From the left side right now, they got Grant Wolfram and Nick Riquet, a new pitcher they acquired a couple days ago, trade with St. Louis for a minor league outfielder. We haven't seen him pitch yet. He's only pitched 2 major league innings, scoreless, last year for the Cardinals. Helsley, of course, closing. And then from the right side, in some order, you got Wells, Garcia, Cano, Nunez, Suarez. So that's not the makeup we were thinking. You've got Aiken, Enns, and Kittredge on the IL. So it's really, it takes a village, so to speak, in a bullpen, Brad. You know that. And I think one thing that's been interesting is Albernaz has lived up to his preseason word that he will use guys in various roles in the pen early, see how it sorts out, and it'll shake out. They'll earn their roles, so to speak, going forward.
I think it's a great way to go about it, give these guys opportunities and you kind of find out where they're going to fall from there. I love kind of like an inner bullpen competition, having guys, not necessarily, you're not rooting against each other. You're all rooting for each other, but you want to outdo the next guy. When I was pitching in Baltimore with those good bullpens we had, you wanted to live up to the Darren O'Days and the Zach Brittons. You didn't want them to upstage you when you're out there. And it kind of creates this healthy competition where everybody's trying to outdo the guy that pitches before them or after them, because you want a big role. Because if you think this team's going to win, you want to be the guy out there when games are big and they're on the line at the end of the season. And I love it. And I think Cano's outing yesterday was really good too. He showed some really good stuff. And that's a guy that kind of gets lost in the shuffle with this bullpen, with him kind of having a down year last year, but he was so good for the Orioles for a couple seasons that you hope that he can get back to his form. And then where does he slot in with this bullpen? It's going to hopefully be a wealth of arms for Albernaz to be able to use. And that's a great problem to have as the manager.
Brad, is that difficult though, as a reliever, not having those set roles? Hey, I'm the 7th inning guy, I'm the setup guy. Can that be difficult, or do you just roll with the punches?
Yeah, I think it's always great to have a set spot, but I think if you have at least an idea, like I'm a 5th to 7th inning guy, that at least eliminates you having to be ready in the 2nd inning. That was always my biggest thing was, some managers kind of didn't have roles, and it was anywhere from the first to the ninth. It's really hard to be locked in for 9 innings every single game on your toes. When that phone rings, you don't know when it's going to be. I always felt like if you were able to at least give me a 3-inning window, and if it ends up not working out that way, it happens. It happens. Any game can happen that way. But if you can give me like a 3-inning window, I at least know to be locked in then. And when the phone rings, just be ready to go. And as the season shakes out, I mean, as much as you want to shuffle guys between roles, if guys prove themselves, you're going to have a solidified ninth. You're going to have a solidified eighth. And then it kind of shuffles in from there, the 5th to 6th, 7th inning guys. But right now, you just got to be ready to go. Whenever your name's called, just go out there and get the outs.
Well, guys, good news. Viewers are finding us already. It's only our 3rd show, and the first 2 are getting a lot of views. And fans are already asking Tim and I on social media, where can they find us beyond YouTube? And I've been told Spotify and Apple. And some people have said they didn't find us on Apple, but maybe we just got to search harder. But I think it's all there. So places you would hear a podcast, traditionally, we're there. We're going to be there, and you'll find it. So you keep searching for Birdland Territory, keep subscribing and following, and we really appreciate it as we're off to a great start with this 3-man show. We got a pretty good 3-man weave going here. So before we were taping the other show, our 2nd show, and after that show, we found out the bad news about Zack Eflin, UCL surgery that came out Wednesday night after his August back surgery, which he was coming back from. He threw so great. In that first game, he fanned 7 3 2/3. He was rolling. He told me how excited he was to pitch this season with a healthy back for the first time in years, and then the elbow goes out. Man, Tim, you talked to him many times over the years, I think, in interviews, and so our heart goes out to this guy.
He's a great guy. He was a regular on our show, I believe, in 2024 down the stretch. We would have him on every other week, and everyone raves about him as a person and what type of leader he is in the clubhouse. But I kept saying all offseason leading up to opening day how he was the ultimate X factor in this rotation to me, Brad, because people forget how good and consistent he was when the Orioles acquired him at the 2024 trade deadline. 10 of his first 12 starts were quality starts, and he was slotted in to be the number 5 guy. And I think Mike Elias, my assumption is that heading into spring training, everyone just assumed that he was going to start the year on the IL, but he pitched his way onto the 26-man roster. That final Grapefruit League start he made against the Yankees, he was lights out. You end up optioning Dean Kramer down. And like Steve said, he had 7 strikeouts in that first start that he had prior to getting pulled with the elbow injury. That tied a season high last year. You really feel for the person, Zack Eflin.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing I want to say. Just it's a horrible injury to have to go through, but having to fight his way back from the previous one. So excited for the season. Doesn't see this on the horizon, then it just happens. You hate to see it for really anybody, but obviously I've never heard a bad thing about Zack Eflin, and it's just heart definitely goes out for him. And like you said, it's just now who's going to step up and who's going to be able to fill that slot that he was going to have. And like you said, with him slated to start on the IL, but then starts the season. Now it's kind of like they have to figure it out on the fly here, and hopefully some guys can step up. But yeah, definitely a tough injury for the Orioles, and to have him slotted in as the number 5 for this rotation, I mean, what a luxury to have in the 5th slot there. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out the rest of the year. And, hopefully he can recover from this and still get another chance to pitch. If it's not for the Orioles, somebody else.
Yeah, we hope so. He's a great teammate. You talk to his teammates, you see the affection and how they feel, the respect they have for Zack Eflin. Shane Baz just talked glowingly, so excited to be reunited with him in Baltimore. And then now Zack is gone after 1 start. He told me in an interview right before opening day, his arm slot was higher now. A couple years ago, when he was 6th for the Cy Young Award, I think it was 23 with the Rays, the highest arm slot, in the measurements they give in StatCast. It had been lowered each of the last 2 years as he was compensating for the back. But now his mechanics were just like he wanted them. The manipulation of the breaking balls with the higher arm slot. I said, are you ready for another top 10 Cy Young finish? He said, I don't want to say it that way, but it's just the best spot I've been in years to pitch and have success. And so such a blow. We wish him the best. Great guy. Oriole fans have gotten to know him in a short time and really like Zack Eflin. So we're sending good thoughts his way for sure. Birdland Territory rolls on here tonight as we get ready for the Orioles to open a homestand against the Giants on Friday night. Let's talk about Gunnar Henderson for a minute. And this guy has off to a pretty good start. He's hitting home runs against lefties. I think he has 2 already, had 3 all last year. So, guys, last year, Gunnar filled up the stat sheet, but it was still a down year from the previous year. His OPS was 787, and his WAR via Baseball Reference was 11th in the American League. These are all really good numbers. But the year previously, he was 4th for the MVP award, trailing only Aaron Judge, Bobby Witt, and Juan Soto. That's the company he was keeping when his OPS was 893. By the way, that's 155 OPS plus, so much better than league average. And he showed us all his skills. It looks like, Tim, we're knocking on wood for him in the Orioles, he's going to do that same thing this year.
The power is back, Steve. The 4 home runs, and he said especially the fact that he did it off left-handed pitching, where he was so good against left-handed pitching in 2024 when he hit 37 home runs. And unfortunately for Gunnar Henderson, he suffered the intercostal strain during spring training. That got his season off to a late start. He still ended up playing in the most games that an Oriole played all of last season, and he dealt with the shoulder impingement, where he said that really zapped him of his power. He went from 37 home runs to 17 home runs. But, Steve, you gave out the numbers. That's just the bar that Gunnar Henderson has set. He set it so high that last year is this quote-unquote down year for him, but he still made strides in different areas. Defensively, even in 2024, we remember those errors really came in bunches in the middle of summer. He had 1 error in the final 93 games of last season. We also saw him steal a ton of bags, a career-high 30 stolen bases last year. So there still was plenty of good last season, but I just have been expecting, Brad, that this is going to be a Gunnar Henderson revenge tour. I'm sure he's still really upset at his lack of playtime in the World Baseball Classic. Mark DeRosa not putting him in the starting lineup as much as Orioles fans and Gunnar Henderson would like. But Gunnar's off to a great start, Brad.
Yeah, he is. He's a true 5-tool player. And like you said, it's almost like he set the bar too high for himself in 2023, where he had in 2024, where he had such amazing seasons. So I think it's just one of those things where he's one of the best players in the league. You can probably talk to any player and they're going to name him in the top 10 if you had to name 10 players in the league. So he brings so much to the game. Like you're talking about on defense, some of the plays he made last series from the outfield grass, the throws that he was making, just plays that he's a player that brings more to the table, that even if he's not hitting, you still want him out there every single day playing shortstop. And that doesn't go to too many guys across the league. But I really like this swing. He talked about it the other night in the broadcast, and after that, keeping his head still. In his last 2 games of that White Sox series, you could tell that he knows his swing so well. And that's what I love about Gunnar Henderson, is that he knows his swing so well. He knows what's off kilter, and he's able to make adjustments on the fly. And he just stayed in on those lefties and got the pitches up in the zone and was able to drive them out for 2 big home runs during that series. And that's just the kind of player that you almost come to expect. He goes 3 games without a home run, and it's almost like, what happened to Gunnar? It's just the expectation that people have. And he'd probably be the first one to tell you that he wants to live up to those expectations. So you want to have a player like him out there, and he's gonna have a comeback year this year. You can just kind of tell with the swings he was getting towards the end of the series, and as the weather warms up at Camden Yards, we know how the ball flies. So good start for him to get going in the right direction, I feel like, in this last series.
Seems like 17 homers. He's going to hit a few more than that this year. He hit 37 2 years ago. And, it's interesting. We were talking about Eflin's mechanics with the back. Gunnar's shoulder impacted his swing mechanics last year. Now we can know that. At the time, the Orioles weren't going to volunteer that, nor was Gunnar, obviously, in season. But he was pounding the ball into the ground. And if you hit it in the ground, it can't go over the fence. That part I do know. So lifting it more in the air like he's now able to do with a healthy shoulder is going to make a difference for this guy. Now, I want to hear both your take on what difference Alonso batting behind him could make, because that's what we've seen so far, whether Gunnar's hit first or second. He's had Ward or Alonso, some protection there. Alonso mostly when he's second and third. How can that help, Brad? How can that help Gunnar?
Yeah, I think having the righty behind him is huge. When you have, it doesn't matter who's on the mound. I mean, having the righty behind him is going to make pitchers have to throw more pitches in the zone to him, because you put Gunnar on, there's a chance of a stolen base and Pete's up. And we know Pete is an RBI machine. So whether Gunnar's on base or Pete's coming up behind, it just, you don't want to put Gunnar on base. And I think teams are going to be forced to make him have to hit the ball. And that's a great problem to have if you're Gunnar Henderson, and a great problem for the Orioles to have, because Pete's going to come around and he's going to start knocking guys in, and Gunnar on the bases is a headache for pitchers. So they're going to start throwing the ball. They're going to start pounding the zone with him, having Pete behind him as protection. And I just have to imagine that he's going to see a lot more pitches in the zone that he can pound.
That's the biggest thing, where you add Taylor Ward, you add Pete Alonso, you take so much pressure off Gunnar Henderson. And I know Mike Elias has mentioned the fact that this team has lacked the veteran leadership, the guys that have been there, done that in recent years, where it takes so much pressure off the young guys, but especially Gunnar Henderson. You got the righty in Taylor Ward, lefty in Gunnar Henderson, righty in Pete Alonso. And when Adley's in the lineup, a switch hitter, batting cleanup. So it gives Gunnar that protection from a lefty coming in. And Pete, he's going to hit. He's coming off a rough road trip. He was 2 for 25 in that road trip. But when Pete starts hitting, then really watch out.
Gunner's an emotional guy. We saw how he rounded the bases when he hit essentially a game-winning homer. We saw it in the WBC. He said to media earlier that he picks his spots because you can't play with that emotion for 162. It's not the NFL, too many games. But there are times when we're going to see that fire and passion. I think fans love that.
Absolutely. That was one of the biggest moments in the World Baseball Classic, where he turned that single into a double. I think it was an error by the center fielder, but he gets up and he's screaming and yelling towards the dugout. And we've seen it both ways. I remember the second game of the season, Brad, where Gunnar was up in a bases loaded situation, 2 outs, big time spot late in the game. He ended up striking popping out. He ended up throwing his bat, and Craig Albertez, he was asked about it after the game, and he said, look, man, like, we love Gunnar. We love him having that type of fire, and that's just who he is, man. Steve, from covering him, being in the clubhouse, it seems like interviews, he's more of a calm, cool, collected guy. Right. But in between the foul lines, man, he plays with his hair on fire, Brad.
Yeah, and to me, that passion that he shows means that he cares. And that's all fans could ask for, and that's all they want to see, is that a guy cares when he's out there. And like, you want to keep your emotions intact for, like you said, it's too long of a season for 162 games. But when a guy gets mad, I want to see it. Fans want to see that, like, it means this game means something to them, that at bat meant something to them. And when they do something good too, I want to see them get excited, because at the end of the day, it's a kid's game and everybody wants to see the players have fun. So I love seeing it. I loved having guys like that behind me. I want to see the emotion when you have it. It doesn't need to be every single at bat, and it doesn't need to be ridiculous, but when it comes out, that the guy really cares about it and that the game means a lot to them. And to me, that's the number one thing you just want to see from a player, is that they care. Obviously, all players care. Trust me, every single player out there wants to do well. Nobody wants to be humiliated. Nobody wants to do bad for teams. But when players show the emotion, that really shows the fans, like, wow, this guy really wants to be out there and he wants to do well for this team, not only for himself, but for the team. And that's one of those things I love seeing from players.
It is a pleasure to watch guys on the farm, as I get to do, and then see them thrive in Baltimore. And we got a superstar in the making here in Gunnar Henderson. And so it's going to be fun to watch where he goes from here in 2026. Where we go from here is some talk about ABS challenges. That's next on the Birdland Territory.
Big Bad Morning Show. Vinny and Haney. Inside Access. Live on YouTube weekdays 6 till 6. Search Baltimore 105.7 The Fan. Subscribe for daily shorts right to your phone and never miss what you missed. 105.7 The Fan.
So, guys, ABS challenges. It was going great for the Orioles until it wasn't. They were 12-2, but now they're 12-10. So their last 8 challenges, they have lost. That's a losing streak you don't want. They're down to 55% correct, which is a little above league average. They were much better, obviously, at 12-2. The batters are 6-7, a little under 500. The fielders, mostly catchers, of course, are 6-3. Pete Alonso's 2-0. Gunnar's 1-2. That's the challenge leaderboard right now. Some stats on that. So the Orioles are in a challenge losing streak. Does that mean they should consider changing how they do business? Tim, you start.
Well, I think this is always going to be a feeling out process here. And Craig Albernaz, I remember him talking during spring training where early on he was saying, yeah, guys, just challenge, get your feel for all of this. But you mentioned the strong start that they had. And the third game of the season really sticks out to me. That game against the Twins, the rubber match, they won 5 of 6 challenges that day. And that went such a long way in them winning that ball game. There were multiple full counts that were walks, ended up being strikeouts. But I think you do have to be more measured in this, and you're still trying to kind of figure out who are guys that you can trust with the challenge, who are guys that you should probably say, hey, hold off unless you're really, really sure. But Brad, I'd love to hear your perspective being, a former reliever, just ABS in general. How would you have handled it as a pitcher?
Yeah, I think it's one of the more interesting storylines of the entire baseball season, just to see how teams are going to do it and how it's going to continue to play out as the season goes along. I think point number one is this is showing how good the umpires actually are. As much as fans want to complain, as much as players love to complain about umpires, they are really good at their jobs. And I mean, if they miss a pitch by less than 0.1 inches, it goes to show how good and measured they are in what the zone is. But getting back to your point about I would have loved to have had one late in the game just in case, because, the pitches mean a little bit more in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. So I think some of these early on, I remember when Brian Reynolds on the Pirates missed 2 early on, and it was the 1st or 2nd inning in those games. And that's, to me, it's like those pitches don't seem to matter as much as they do later in the game. Ryan Flaherty, bench coach for the Cubs, says they kind of have like a sheet. Talk to him about it. They kind of have like a almost like a formula that if, runners in scoring position and it tips the count one way or the other, maybe that's a good shot, but otherwise let's hold off. It's just going to be interesting to see how teams play it. I think you got to hold off for big spots. I think bases empty, don't even bother. Just play the game as is, especially for the first 3 innings. If there's nobody on base, there's not a reason to even think about touching your cap. But that's just how I'm kind of viewing it right now.
No, and to your point, Brad, it kind of burned the Orioles. I remember, what was it, last Saturday, where Ryan Helsley, they didn't have the challenge. He wanted the challenge. It would have ended up being a strikeout. And then the very next pitch ended up being the walk-off. But yeah. I'll say this, guys. I've been kind of blown away by the ABS. Like I was for it coming in, but it's added so much drama to the game, and it gets the fans involved. Obviously, they're putting it up on the Jumbotron at whatever stadium that they're in, but it's added so much drama and late game drama at that.
It really has, and of course, the MLB did a good job with this because they sort of perfected it on the farm.
Yep.
And they brought it here now. So a friend of mine said to me today, the Orioles maybe shouldn't let their young guys get involved with this, the young hitters right now. But my retort to my friend, who's very good about baseball, very astute fan, was, wait a second, some of these young guys know the strike zone as well as anybody in the clubhouse. And if it's the 5th inning and the bases are loaded and a young guy's up there and it's a 3-2 pitch that they know got messed up, you got to allow him to challenge. I don't think you could just have one size fits all here, but that's for the Orioles and Craig Albernaz to decide. That's just my take. But I like you guys have been saying, I think you want to have one left for the late innings. So if you're down to 1 in the 3rd inning, you might have to sit on it for a couple innings. Yeah.
And I think like when I had first thought about it, I thought it was going to be like a lot more pitches challenge, but you only have the 2 misses. So it's one of those things that like you use that first one and now you're down to 1 and you don't want to use that anywhere near unless it's towards the end of the game. So I thought it was going to be a lot more challenges and kind of crazy situations with it, but it kind of, has kind of ironed itself out as the season's moved along here, I feel like, and it's only 10 games in or 9 games in. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it's played out. It was almost like in 2014 and 15 when we added the instant replay. It's like, a call is wrong, but is it worth the 50-50 chance that you're not right? And you just kind of learn as the season went along to kind of save it for the bigger chances, the bigger moments. But Steve, I agree. I think if it's a young hitter, bases loaded, 2nd inning, and he knows it's either a ball strike one way or the other, you got to give him the opportunity to do it. If they miss it, they miss it. But I feel like if you use it in a big spot, you can never feel bad about it because that pitch could end up turning an inning into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 runs. You just never know after that. So I feel like taking individual players and saying, you can't do it, you can't. I feel like that gets a little dicey too when you start looking for each team and how they use it.
Going to be interesting to watch. And as you guys were saying, it's showing that the umpires, large majority of them, are pretty good. When you consider the average is 54% overturn, this is players who feel sure they were wronged, and 46% of the time they were not wronged. The umpire gets it right. So there are nights where it looks bad for the umpire. Teams are just left and right, but we haven't seen a lot of that so far. So we'll see how this is all going to play out with ABS challenges. Mm-hmm. But guys, I think we got another one in the books, man. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Brad, for a great show. We're going to be here all season long. It looks like we'll join you next, most likely on Sunday night. We'll see how the weekend goes. So, guys, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time, all right?
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Thanks to Brad. Thanks to Tim. And thanks to you for watching Birdland Territory.